This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
This is your WCFW Daily News Roundup for 105.7 CFW in Chippewa Falls and 93.5 The Tap in Eau Claire.
For WCFW News, I'm James Kelly. The ATV and UTV county forest trails in Eau Claire have been reopened due to a lack of snowy conditions. According to a press release from the Eau Claire County Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department, the trails will still be closed again as previously scheduled beginning on March 15th. Officials are also reminding riders that using their ATVs and UTVs off the designated trails is still prohibited. ATV and UTV riders can contact the Parks Department directly for updated information on which trails are open and closed around the area. The Eau Claire Police Department has announced the arrest of a suspect in connection to a Saturday morning homicide. According to law enforcement authorities, officers responded to reports of a shooting at a residence on Western Avenue at around 2 a.m. on Saturday. When they arrived, they attempted life-saving measures on the victim but were unsuccessful. They say the suspect was quickly identified and arrested, and it is considered to be an isolated incident. Authorities have not yet shared the identities of the victim and suspect. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation will host a public meeting on the proposed rehabilitation project of the US 63 bridge over the Yellow River in Spooner. According to DOT officials, the meeting will be held at Spooner City Hall on February 5th at 5 p.m. The bridge is about 50 years old, and the proposed construction work is scheduled for 2028. DOT officials are planning to overlay the bridge deck with concrete, replace aging structures, improve nearby drainage, and replace a guardrail. Traffic would be reduced to a single lane during construction. On Friday, the Wisconsin Supreme Court agreed to hear arguments in a lawsuit over $50 million of funding to overhaul how public schools teach their students to read. Republican lawmakers sued Governor Tony Evers following line-item vetoes on the bill, which gave the Department of Public Instruction the authority to decide how that money is spent rather than the state legislature. Since that partial veto, the Republican-controlled legislature has refused to release the funding, which could lead to the money being added back to the budget surplus. The Dane County judge who struck down parts of the controversial Act 10 has granted a request from Republican lawmakers to put a temporary hold on the decision while they pursue an appeal. Judge Jacob Frost found that the risk of enforcing the ruling while the appeal was still pending could cause confusion and chaos if the decision was overturned by the appeals court after public employee unions had already started engaging in contract negotiations. If overturned by the appeals court, the ruling would be considered again by the state Supreme Court. Wisconsin nonprofits that support victims of domestic violence are looking for solutions as federal funding cuts limit their ability to continue offering their current level of service. According to a WPR report, a number of those nonprofits are now facing significant delays and backlog with reduced funding through the Victims of Crime Act, forcing them to reduce staff and sometimes even turn away cases that they would otherwise accept. Some organizations have reported losing as much as 70% of their funding through VOCA. The man convicted of helping to hide the bodies of 4 homicide victims in Dunn County has been sentenced to prison. 59-year-old Darren Osborne has been sentenced to 16 years in prison and 8 years of extended supervision on 4 counts of hiding a corpse as party to a crime. According to court documents, the 4 victims were believed to have been killed in St. Paul in September of 2021 by Osborne's son, Antoine Suggs. Their bodies were later found in a cornfield in the town of Sheridan, and Suggs turned himself in 5 days later. 2 Rice Lake men are facing up to 15 years in prison and a fine of up to $50,000 after being charged with delivery of methamphetamine. According to court documents, 26-year-old Benjamin Blomberg and 23-year-old Carl Rydell were charged in Barron County earlier this month after a series of drug stings conducted by the Barron County Sheriff's Office. During the stings, a confidential informant allegedly purchased methamphetamine from the 2 men and recorded the interactions. Both are due back in court on February 26th. The Wisconsin Natural Resources Board has approved an increase in the bear harvest quota for 2025 as well as an increase in the number of licenses issued. Under the new regulations, the bear quota will be raised by 6% to nearly 4,100 bears, and the number of licenses issued will be raised by 14% to over 13,000. The changes come after an especially strong bear hunting season in 2024, which saw hunters harvest about 4,300 bears. The 2023 bear season saw less than 3,000 bears harvested in total. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources is reminding residents to exercise caution when using recreational vehicles in dangerous winter conditions. According to the DNR, there have already been 2 fatal UTV crashes and 1 fatal snowmobile crash this year, 2 of which occurred on frozen bodies of water. Officials are reminding riders that ice is never completely safe in any conditions, and they should check with local organizations for updated information, bring proper clothing and equipment, and avoid traveling in unfamiliar areas. For WCFW News, I'm James Kelly.
The Chiefs beat the Bills. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs held on to beat the Bills 32-29. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes on having the chance to be the first team to win 3 Super Bowls in a row.
It's just so hard to get to the Super Bowl, and I don't take it for granted. And to be able to do it again at Arrowhead was special. I mean, last year it was awesome. You get there and you win it, but you're at a different stadium. And then being able to win it at Arrowhead, these moments that I'll have for the rest of my life.
Bills quarterback Josh Allen now being 0-4 in the postseason against Kansas City.
It's not fun, but to beat the champs, you gotta beat the champs, and we didn't do it tonight.
The Chiefs will face the Eagles on Sunday, February 9th in Super Bowl 59. College basketball, the Wisconsin Badgers beating Nebraska 83-55. Nebraska has now lost 6 in a row. NBA, the Bucks are in Salt Lake City tonight to take on the Utah Jazz inside the Delta Center. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. Author Stephen King has provided a wealth of material to Hollywood filmmakers. One of his titles, 1987's The Running Man, was turned into a successful film decades ago and is now getting a remake. It's currently in production and stars Glenn Powell, Michael Cera, and Josh Brolin. Helming the project is director Edgar Wright, whose previous credits include Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. Fun fact, King initially published The Running Man under the name Richard Bowman. The story was originally set way in the future, 2025. Oh dear. The Grammys are right around the corner, and the producers of the show are putting on the finishing touches for the broadcast. Variety reports that the performers will include Chappell Roan, Sabrina Carpenter, and Charlie XCX. Trevor Noah is back to host the show, which has announced that some of the proceeds from the broadcast will go to those who lost their homes in the LA fires. The Grammys air February 2nd on CBS. If you're looking for a new hobby that requires almost absolutely no activity, consider Hurkle-Durkling. It's a centuries-old Scottish tradition. Hurkle-Durkling translates to the art of lazing in bed. The practice encourages people to stay in their pajamas and not get up. Most of us consider this being lazy or depressed, but if you use the phrase Hurkle-Durkle, it makes it sound more clinical. Still probably not an acceptable excuse for being late to work. Now, hotels are encouraging people to take a Hurkle-Durkle stay. Yes, by all means, go spend a few $100 a night to stay in bed and not do anything. Money well spent. Amy Schumer says she might actually be canceled after admitting to hooking up with a fan. She talked about the experience on the Call Her Daddy podcast, saying that a professional baseball player who was a huge fan visited her for a rendezvous in her hotel room one night. She goes into more detail on the podcast. Let's just say they did more than Hurkle-Durkle. Schumer's new comedy special, Kind of Pregnant, drops February 5th on Netflix. Really good actors are supposed to be fearless. Leonardo DiCaprio is typically one of them. That was not the case, though, on the set of Django Unchained. During a recent interview with Vanity Fair, Jamie Foxx recalled DiCaprio, who played a ruthless slave owner, had trouble saying words that were racial slurs, even though he was in character. According to Fox, Samuel Jackson put DiCaprio at ease, saying, like only Samuel Jackson can, "You can say that, mother." DiCaprio got the point. If you've got $150 million burning a hole in your pocket, consider purchasing Tom Brady's house. The amazing quarterback and mediocre commentator is selling his mansion in Miami. Don't worry, renovations are done, and they must have been doozies because he purchased the home in 2024 for 17 million smackers. Not many people pocket 133 mil on a sale. Anyone interested in pretending to be filthy rich and taking a tour? I'm in. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
I'm meteorologist Mace Michaels. Thickening clouds, couple of flurries or maybe a sprinkle this afternoon, and highs in the upper 30s. Partly cloudy, upper teens tonight, and partly sunny, warmer and low 40s tomorrow, but breezy. Mild for the rest of the week, 30s and 40s for highs, dry and partly cloudy. Currently 21 degrees.
That's your WCFW and the TAP Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at WCFW.FM or thetap.fm. The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.